Hey everybody, this is Sally Griffin, aka Millionaire Yogi, and I help visionaries become world-changing influencers. And I'm doing a short series. There are about 5 videos that are going out with these emails, all about different aspects of influence, because it's a topic that's become really interesting to me. So the topic of leadership was the first thing that I was looking at, and a lot of the work I do as a coach is to get behind people who want to be world-changing leaders. But as I started doing the work, I realized that actually, leaders will be people who maybe have much more of a flamboyant personality. They step onto the world stage. They like being seen. But quite often, leaders are all focused on the internal world of them. And influencers are the kind of leaders that I'm really interested in, because their focus is not just on them. Their focus is on creating a movement, on creating a change in the world. And I wanted to start the series by giving you an idea of some of the kinds of influence that takes place. And then you will be able to see what kind of influencer you are. And then we can go from there. So let's just say that the first topic that really speaks to me is that influencers don't change the system, they create a new one. And I want you to think about somebody like Steve Jobs. And when Apple came up with its ad campaign of Think Different, since Apple hit the world stage, there has never been anything the same. It literally altered the realm in which we experience the world of online laptops or phones. And I know that those of you who are Apple users will know that with that came the idea that we could do drag and drop, things were easy, you could use visual cues, you could move things around, and the design was ergonomic. And Apple changed the world stage. They didn't try and tweak an IBM series of related results for themselves. They literally changed the system that they work in, and it was part design, part programming. So, maybe that is your kind of influence that you're looking to exert. Maybe you're somebody who, you might be a computer nerd. We love computer nerds because you sit behind the computers and you do all this tweaking and influencing. And it's not the same as a leader where you're standing up on a world stage and let's say it's personality driven. You would be the type of person who wants to see a change in design so that something becomes much more efficient, easier, information passes easier. You might be changing a system. Are you that kind of influencer? Then another kind of influencer would be somebody who, at their heart, they're so moved to change something in the environment. So let's say, I myself got very impacted by plastic. I still am praying that the world is going to wake up to the plastic problem. And when I created a yoga festival in the last 5 years, one of the things that I made as the remit was that it was absolutely going to be plastic free. And what that meant was some of the systems that we had in place to, for normal festivals, they really don't look into the environmental impact of what they leave behind. I mean, some of the big music festivals that I know in England, Glastonbury, and on the States, there's all sorts of massive music festivals. If you see the photographs of the aftermath of a festival, it is shocking. Like, people literally leave their tents, their plastic, their rubbish, and nobody picks it up. So the kind of influencer that I was interested in being in that arena was I made our vendors sign contracts that said that they were not allowed to hand out plastic, and then if they did, they would lose the deposit that they had to give us as an environmental deposit to become a vendor. Now, the other side that happened with that, it meant that we couldn't be as commercially viable, so some sponsors were not able to step in because they were covered in plastic. But some sponsors who came in and vendors, we actually influenced them to change their packaging. And so the movement was bigger than me, in other words. It was definitely bigger than my yoga festival. And in one of the videos, I'll talk much more about that kind of influence that you can have. Let's say you're another kind of influencer. What about Tom's Shoes? That's a great example. So it's where your business itself incorporates, say, a charitable proposition. And so the genius of it is you may be really interested in style, fashion, something that, I don't want to deride this at all, but let's say is slightly more superficial on the surface, right? It's all about looking good. It could be makeup, it could be anything. But the back end of it, as an influencer, you want to see some of that money and some of the good works go to, say, working towards alleviating poverty. And so those kind of influencers, Tom's is a great example of that, because what they did, or what he did, was he created, for every pair of Tom's shoes, a pair of shoes are given to kids who don't have shoes, right? And it started off as a really great rolling idea, but also what happened was the fashion of Tom's, sped up. It became lifestyle oriented. It became not only charitable, but an incredible lifestyle brand. And so it's a multi-million-dollar proposition, which also has an influencer background of being like, it's a new business. It's a new kind of concept business. It's not where just the top 1% do really well and then nobody else does. It's like everything it does is pushing out great influence. So that's another kind of influence. And let's say there's another one where, say you're a thought influencer. You're somebody like Oprah. Like, she's a great example of that. Oprah didn't come from money. In fact, she had a really, really tough background. And to top it off, she's a black woman. So in terms of white TV, white media, which is run or has historically been run by white men and people in positions of power, Oprah would have been considered like the sort of unlikely to make it horse in the race, let's put it that way. And yet, through her passion and her genius conversations, and she is a genius influencer, because even in the way she conducts interviews, she tackles the most heavy subjects with the most spiritually enlightened manner. And then much of her work is about helping young black girls around the world. She consciously supports that. And so she's an influencer. You know that, for instance, if Oprah backs a project, you can be sure that other people will be interested. Sponsors will jump on, the world wakes up, and the stage is set for something really interesting to happen. So my subject matter is, I work with people who are visionaries or conscious entrepreneurs who want to become world stage influencers. And I'm really digging deep into this topic. I want you to start to feel the stirrings in your own heart. What is your version of influence? What is the kind of thing that really sets your heart on fire? What is something that you could even imagine causing a movement? And I'm going to be speaking about that even in the next video, which is called Ignite a Spark, but Don't Own the Flame. And I'll be sending these videos out, and what I'd like you to do is, why don't you tell me, if you want to really engage with this, have you thought about the change you'd like to see in the world? What would be something you'd like to influence? And if you want to respond to this email, the email that this video is on, you can actually engage directly with me and have this conversation. You can send me an email, just return the email, reply, and tell me about what kind of change you would like to see in the world. And I'll bring that up in the topic. And all my information is in my private Facebook group. I'm known as Millionaire Yogi, so you can always find me on Facebook or Instagram, or my website, millionaireyogi.guru. But you can also engage with me in conversation in my private Facebook group called When Business is Pleasure. And that's where a lot of the juice happens. So I can't wait to hear what you're up to and engage in this conversation of influence, because this is the new body of work that I'm really working on. So, you know, it's a pleasure to hear other people's ideas. Namaste. See you next time.